What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday we saw an announcement leak out kind of early from Sony online, and it looks like it's geared up to be shown off today, but it's a new feature for PlayStation Plus, and it appears to have some people online right now conflicted around the situation with Sony, and we'll talk about that one here today. Also, we're going to talk about the new test drive game that's coming up here, as they released a new trailer that showed off all the platforms that the game is coming to, and yes, that does include the Nintendo Switch. Oh, and we finally got the release date for Tales of Arise. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with an announcement from Capcom that's sure to make a lot of Ace Attorney fans happy. We can head over here to The Verge, where they say Capcom announced that it will be releasing 2 classic games in the Ace Attorney series in English for the first time this July. The new collection, titled The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, bundles The Great Ace Attorney Adventures and The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve in one package that will be available on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Steam for $40 on July 27th. They had a fairly long trailer kind of going over it, introducing everything, and they even talked about a feature where you can actually watch basically the entire story unfold without having to play it, so it'll more or less be like watching a longer, I guess, TV series or something. So I guess that's kind of cool for people who just want to see how the plot ends up without having to make the decisions, I guess, and try to figure out the cases and all of this. But either way, though, this is big for Ace Attorney fans because, as I say, the first time going to English, and obviously these games are very text-heavy, so kind of hard to play it if you don't know the language that it's in. So really cool to see that. Now, people were wondering, why didn't they save this for E3? It's at the end of July is when it's coming out, so they probably wanted to give retailers and marketing more than a month and a half for the run-up of this one, but either way, look forward to this at the end of July. Also, another patent was spotted from Sony, and this one's kind of interesting. So think about the idea of your system and an AI kind of monitoring you and watching how you're playing, and then when you need them to, they can take over and more or less mimic your behavior and how you are in the game. We can actually see this description here of the patent along with some images spotted by Segment Next, where it says the method includes assigning a default gameplay profile to a user, wherein the default gameplay profile includes a default gameplay style that simulates human gameplay, and wherein the default gameplay profile is configured to control gameplay for the user based on the default gameplay style. And this is interesting because I'm trying to think of cases where you would want the system to take over for you. Maybe you have to step away from the system for a couple of minutes, and it's a game that's online only and you can't pause it, and you're in the middle of a firefight or something, and you're like, okay, PlayStation, take over. And it's just like all of a sudden your character is just playing like you would. And that way, I guess if you're teamed up with some people online, you're not technically hiding in a corner and making things more difficult on them. Or I guess, I don't know, maybe you have to like eat and you don't want to pause it and like stop. You want the game to keep going. It's interesting to think that you could potentially play for like 2 hours and then let the system play the rest of the game for you. I don't know. It's very interesting to think about that one. This is a patent though, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be anything. It's something to think about with how Sony is kind of looking at everything with AI and the PlayStation. Oh, and we had talked previously about how Microsoft announced that any of the free-to-play games would actually be free-to-play now on the Xbox, because before it was locked behind Xbox Live Gold, that being the $60 a year service that they attempted to double to $120 per year. What looks like starting now, over 50 games will be completely free to play, with that Xbox Live requirement being dropped. And there is a fairly large list you can look through here, and the basics are here, like Call of Duty Warzone, sure, Fortnite, Destiny 2, Apex Legends, but they also had a few in here that I kind of forgot would fall under these guidelines, like Crackdown 1 and Crackdown 2. That's actually given away by Microsoft on their website, which means it's a free-to-play game that has online. So yeah, you can, if you buy an Xbox and you're sitting there, you're like, oh yeah, I want to go play the old Crackdown and I want to play it online. You don't need Xbox Live Gold for that. In fact, you can just download it and go. So that's kind of cool. If you missed out on the original Crackdown, it's still a really fun game. Some people would say, hey, it's better than Crackdown 3 even. So hey, good to see at least we're to the point now where if you want to play Fortnite, you don't have to worry on any of these systems. You don't have to worry about having to pay the platform holder money to actually play it online. It took Microsoft some catching up, but we're finally here. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this leaked announcement from Sony for the PlayStation. And when I saw this online, I said, yeah, okay, sure, I guess it's an extra feature, but it does actually make sense why some people would be conflicted on this whole thing, because if you look at what Microsoft's been doing on the other side, they continue to add more and more value to a service like we have with Game Pass. And I know PlayStation Plus, you can't completely take it and put it right next to Game Pass because Game Pass is more expensive, like Game Pass Ultimate, than PlayStation Plus. But I still feel like people saw what happened with MLB The Show 21, and they're still kind of asking Sony, hey, like, what are you guys going to do for us here with Microsoft really pushing hard right now to start this generation? Well, it looks like they're going to have their own streaming service kind of added on to PlayStation Plus, at least for the next year. And you just heard streaming, and you're like, oh, game streaming, that makes sense. No, video streaming, like streaming movies and I guess TV shows. And that's probably a thing that people were a bit maybe annoyed about, even because it's not even gaming related. You think of PlayStation Plus and you usually think of games, but take a look at this promo here. This was spotted on the Polish website, that being PlayStation.com there, and the description reads, a new benefit available for a limited time on PlayStation Plus. PS Plus Video Pass is a trial service active from April 22nd, 2021, so starting today, which I guess if this is all correct, we should see that announcement from Sony then today, and that'll run the full year until 2022. In April, the subscription benefit is available for PS Plus users in Poland. Now, one thing I do want to stress here is sometimes these different larger companies will basically do a trial for themselves as well and just put it in one region and see how it goes. But this appears to be for a full year, and based on the promo work and stuff they've done here, I kind of feel like they're going to deploy it everywhere. And look, based on some of the movies they showed, like Venom, for example, if you look at this, I mean, I don't think you can watch Venom anywhere on any of these streaming services, at least that I've seen. Like on the basics like Netflix or Amazon Prime streaming, I haven't seen it. And that's, of course, because it's distributed by Sony. And they did just sign a deal with Netflix, so maybe that means that Venom will go there eventually, but it does appear that that's one of the big movies that they're like, hey, you can watch it here. So at least for now, that's probably something they're going to use to push their own video streaming service. And I guess one of the ways in their mind that they can try to get it at least off to a faster start is to legitimately just give it to the 50 or 60 million people signed up to PlayStation Plus now. Like I said, the only thing that seems to be rubbing people the wrong way is it has nothing really to do with games, and most of us are probably already on what will end up being a superior streaming service when it comes to video, whether it's Amazon Prime Video or Netflix. I mean, if you look at obviously Netflix is the big one that most people default to, but even Amazon's been pushing pretty hard with some good shows like Invincible, which is a very good show right now. So I'm not really sure how this is going to work out with Sony with a streaming service that they're going to, I assume, try to push here with PlayStation Plus, but really, how many shows and movies will it offer compared to other services? But I guess we'll find out later on today. It's April 22nd, as the promo says, and we'll see what they have for us there. So look out for that. You should at least get a trial of this if you're a PlayStation Plus member now for the next year or so. Next up, let's talk about Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. This is the test drive game that's coming up here. It was announced last year, and they just dropped another trailer yesterday, and it looks like it's coming to quite a few platforms. In fact, one in particular seemed to surprise a lot of people, and it's the Switch. And it's interesting that we're still at this point where when a game comes to the Switch, that the people are looking at it like, I don't know, it maybe, and then they're genuinely surprised. It's weird because the Switch is over 80 million units. You feel like if a company can get the game on it, they're gonna do it. Like, they're gonna try as hard as they can. Not every game's gonna get there because there is still a porting process that's quite involved, and a lot of times the game will come later, like the rumors for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot say, now that game's coming to the Switch. But let's take a look here. This is the trailer going through. It looks pretty straightforward, but then at the end, we can see all the different platforms that it's coming to: PS5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, the Switch, the Epic Game Store, Steam. There's actually quite a few platforms that are going to get this game too. And Test Drive Unlimited. It was actually a really cool game on the 360. I actually played it quite a bit. It's the second one, especially. It's kind of like an open world style racing game, and it was really cool then. And I'm excited to see what they do here with Solar Crown for, I guess, their next generation Test Drive game. I mean, technically it's jumping all, to the Xbox Series X and the Series S. And realistically, that's probably where I'll play it the most because, I mean, I played it on the 360 a lot. lot, I'll probably just jump to the Series X with this. But still, looking at it going to the Switch is pretty cool because racing games do come to the Switch, but it's not as constant as you would expect for some of these racing games that can clearly run on the Switch. But it does appear that things like maybe the digital triggers on the Switch that really are not set up well for racing games, to the point where we had Forever Entertainment actually give you a GameCube controller with grid to use that analog trigger there, or use the right stick to accelerate or decelerate or any of that. So people have to find workarounds for this. And I kind of hope that in the next generation Switch that Nintendo realizes, okay, yeah, let's go with analog triggers for this one, probably just because of the Joy-Cons, they had to go with digital, but still, either way, very cool to see Test Drive go to so many platforms, including the Switch, a system that can pretty much use as many racing games as it can get, especially one like this that's a big open world, arcadey, but still kind of simulation style. So I'm excited to see more about Test Drive as we go forward here through 2021. Next up, let's talk about Knights of the Old Republic. We had mentioned before about a rumor, it was speculation that Aspyr was going to be doing something with KOTOR, whether it was a remaster or a remake. Based on what Aspyr has been doing, I was kind of thinking it'd be more of a remaster, kind of bringing it up and just making it work with current systems, whether it's the controls, smooth out the visuals and all this, but it appears they might be going a little further with it, and we have a couple of reports around this situation. We head over here to Eurogamer, where they say Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier revealed the detail while a guest on MinMax podcast. It follows earlier whispers of a KOTOR remake, which have swirled for some time, and which also suggests the project wasn't being handled internally by EA or original studio BioWare. Now, Eurogamer has separately heard of Aspyr's involvement, and that while the developer is known for often releasing straight ports, work is currently underway to make the project more of a remake instead. Okay, so this is really exciting, obviously, because I do wonder now how many gamers have experienced Knights of the Old Republic, and if you have not, I'm very excited for you, because Knights of the Old Republic is one of my favorite games ever made. It is that good. It had one of the craziest twists in the game and in like gaming history. It's a really good one to play. And the idea of them going back and not just remastering it, because when I think of Aspyr, I think of the remastered work they've done with some of these games we've recently seen, especially from the Star Wars franchise, by the way. They just released Republic Commando, and then before that, we had Pod Racer and Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. And yeah, they've been pretty in tune with the Star Wars universe with a lot of their remasters, but to think this would be a bit of a bigger project for them going in the realm of remake with Knights of the Old Republic is something a lot of us have been asking for, because the game could use a remake. You go back now, visually, it's not the greatest, obviously. It was on the original Xbox back in the day, and while we have seen frame rate improvements, which is awesome, it still could use some work with textures, character models, lighting, obviously bring it up to current standards, I guess you could say. I mean, we see what's happened here with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It's going to need even more work than that, I think. So that's interesting that Aspyr would indeed be doing that, and it'd be taking place outside of EA. But like I said, there's clearly a relationship there for Aspyr and what we've seen with the Star Wars universe and the franchise. So, it's going to be interesting. You know what? Let me know if you've played Knights of the Old Republic yet, because I am very curious how many gamers now just have not experienced it yet, because that would be so cool to be able to go back through it for the first time. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Tales of Arise, because we've been covering this for a while now. It was delayed, of course, and they said they'd have more info for us when it would be ready. And it looks like now they're ready to talk about the release date, and it is coming out September 9th in Japan, and then September 10th everywhere else. This from Bandai Namco. They put out a full trailer for it, and they also talked about some of the platforms, because there's a bit of a surprise here when it comes to that. It is coming to the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, as well as PC. That was originally announced before, but it's also coming to the Xbox Series X, S, and the PlayStation 5. It's not just coming to those systems through backwards compatibility. It also appears they're going to be taking advantage of the next-gen systems in terms of power and some of the other features that will be applied, which does include a performance mode or a quality mode. The performance mode more targeting 60 frames per second, whereas the quality mode will target 4K. And you might be thinking, oh, it's like an RPG. I guess I'll just go with 4K, the quality mode. If it's like 30 frames per second, who cares? But if you look at the trailer they put out, it is very fast. Like, the gameplay is super quick here. There's combos all over the place. You're tagging in and out with your different characters. You're doing combos. So I actually think I will leave it on the performance mode, and sometimes with RPGs, because they are slower with turn-based ones, I wouldn't really care so much, but in this case, it actually looks like it would help quite a bit. I'm very happy to hear that things are on track for a fall release now, and I'm really happy to hear as well that we can be looking at taking advantage of these next-gen platforms, especially if you've been able to get a hold of a PS5. It'd be nice to get some of these games over to that newer system, especially taking advantage of things like faster load times, the SSD, maybe even ray tracing and higher frame rates. But good stuff there. Happy to finally hear about a release date for Tales of Arise. And who knows, maybe we can expect to see more as we go forward here through E3. So look out for that. Before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, which third party are you most interested in at E3 2021? Square Enix was at the top here, 44%, followed by Capcom, 26%. Not surprising to see those two third-party companies take up the majority of the votes, considering they've both been on, quite the roll recently. Below that, though, Ubisoft at 14, Konami at 11, and Koch Media or THQ Nordic at 5%. Interesting in there because there are quite a few studios that could show games from THQ Nordic and Koch Media at E3, and that could even include a new Time Splitter, so consider that one. Konami, though, at 11%. Konami's interesting because they could have some cool things to show here at E3. Like, we've heard all the rumors about Silent Hill, even a Metal Gear Solid Remake, and I don't think Metal Gear Solid Remake will be ready anytime soon, but we could get like a Metal Gear Solid HD collection thrown on the Switch. Just, I would keep more of an eye on Konami than 11% of what we're seeing in the polls here. They could show up with some cool stuff at E3. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from HUD saying, imagine if after all these years, Mother 3 gets localized, but it's only available for a limited time, like they did with Mario and Fire Emblem. Hey, you know what? If that's the only chance we got, if they're like, look, we're either going to do it limited or we're not going to do it at all, go ahead, do it limited. But they have to do a really cool special edition, big box set and all of this, because they did one for Fire Emblem, but my only problem there is that was only digital. I'd like to see the full physical edition of Mother 3 on a cartridge for the Switch, put all the cool limited edition stuff around it, sell it for 6 months, whatever. If it's that or nothing, I'd rather them at least go that route, because I still think Nintendo is a bit concerned about releasing it in the West, but hey, it was only a limited time thing anyway, and it's mostly for collectors, right? Come on. I think Nintendo, you can do that. Just make the special edition really cool if you do. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's this video pass from Sony being attached to the PlayStation Plus service. Do you think it's strange that they're attaching like this video streaming service for a year to PlayStation Plus? Or you're like, hey, it's an extra benefit that I get, that I'm not paying extra for. And then also, what do you think about Aspyr not just tackling a remaster for Knights of the Old Republic, but a full remake? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.